Good evening and welcome to It's Kairos Time. My name is Ciara Taylor and I support the Kairos Center with our arts and cultural organizing and political education. A Kairos moment is a time when crisis and opportunity collide and the possibility for something new can emerge. It's Kairos Time is a bi-weekly series of 30-minute talks with partners, collaborators, and movement builders, where we discuss what's happening and what we're going to do to respond in this Kairos moment. This It's Kairos Time conversation will feature longtime welfare rights organizer Maureen Taylor and the director of Storming Caesar's Palace, Hazel Gurland. Storming Caesar's Palace was nominated for Best Documentary Feature and won the Shine Award for First Time Filmmaker at the BlackStar Film Festival in 2022. Hazel and the film received support from Big Sky Pitch, Black Public Media's Incubator 360, and PitchBLACK, Firelight Media's Documentary and Impact Labs, Film Independent Documentary Labs, the Gotham's Film and Media Institute, and Brown Girl Doc Mafia's Feedback Loop.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us today, this evening. Welfare rights organizing is very near and dear to the heart and soul of the Kairos Center. Our organization was birthed out of the movement and organizing of welfare families and homeless folks, low income people who came together in unity to fight for our right to housing, to food, and the right to life. And the welfare rights organizing has helped to develop so many leaders within our network. And it has been an honor to be able to learn from and to work alongside, especially the leaders of the National Welfare Rights Union. I wanted to open us up. I'm gonna just share you all's bios, and then we'll get right into the conversation. Filmmaker Hazel Gurland directed 10 episodes of PBS's celebrity genealogy series, Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr. By exploring pioneering ancestors, immigrants, roots from around the world, and our DNA, Hazel hopes that viewers will realize that we are more similar to each other than we are different. Hazel created and produced a 5-part short documentary series about the daily lives of the often overlooked low-income New Yorkers called My Everyday Hustle, part of WNET's multi-platform media public initiative, Chasing the Dream, Poverty and Opportunity in America. The series streamed on pbs.org and broadcast on PBS World Channel in 2017. Hazel produced Roots, A History Revealed for History, which was nominated for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Documentary Television. Produced in connection with A&E's reboot of Alex Haley's miniseries Roots, this special provided an unflinching look at the history of slavery in America. The director's cut screened at the Bushwick Film Festival in 2016. Hazel also co-produced 2 hours of the 6-hour series, African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross, with Henry Louis Gates, which was honored with an Emmy, a Peabody, and an Alfred I. DuPont Columbia Baton, and the NAACP Image Awards. Hazel has worked on documentaries for HBO, Frontline, AMC, ABC, History, and A&E. She has degrees from Bard College and Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism and lives in NYC with her family. Maureen Taylor Oh man, what a hero of mine. Since 1993, Maureen Taylor has served as chair of the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization, a union of public assistance recipients, low-income workers, and the unemployed that organizes members to fight for their rights and to eliminate poverty in this country. Over the past several years, Maureen spearheaded several MWRO campaigns to protect low-income Detroiters against electricity, gas, and water shutoffs. So I wanted to start with you for this conversation, Ms. Mo. If you could just talk a little bit about how you got involved in welfare rights organizing.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you, aggressive, that's what you're called, aggressive young women. And I think I'm in the right room if I'm in the room with you all. I got into welfare rights. I had been married just a few years, and the man I was married to was laid off. And I thought, well, okay, I know about this program called welfare. And what I'm going to do is go over to the welfare office. And I had a list. I'm going to need some help with rent. And I'm going to need some help with utilities. And I'm going to need some help with food. Because I understood that that's what they did. And the response when I went fill out the application was that I should come back when I'm almost evicted, when I'm starving and no food in the refrigerator, if I have the shutoff notice from the gas company, the light company, and the water company, because I'm not in trouble unless I have those documents. So I went back home and told my husband, these people are crazy, and had a discussion with him. And then I remembered I met this young woman. Her name was Marion Kramer. So I called her and I said, listen, I went to the welfare department to get these things. My husband was laid off and I'm not working now. And she had me to meet her at the welfare office. And the first thing she did when we got there, this is just a little tiny notebook, but in those days you had manuals. And she took the manual and she threw it. And she hit the worker in the chest. And I thought, damn, she's crazy, right? Everybody scattered in the welfare rights office. People were running out of the doors. They were fainting, all kinds of things. Workers were diving for cover. And I thought, okay, she's not any bigger than me. But here comes the supervisor and said, just tell me what you want. I told her. In another 15 or 20 minutes, she came back and she handed me food stamps. She gave me a voucher for my lights and gas and water and another voucher for my rent. And I looked at this crazed woman who threw the manual and I thought, she's not bigger than me. What is it about what she brings to this fight that I want to get into? I was hooked that day, and I knew that this question of poverty was something much deeper than I understood before I came to this welfare office in need of help. I've been here ever since.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I love that. I love that so much, that story about just like how you connect with someone else and how someone else's leadership is able to inspire your own, and just thinking about that quality.
That's
right. I want to turn it to you, Hazel. I have to say this film is incredible. I was telling you earlier, just the energy of it, the way in which the women in the film, these fighters, were really humanized and lifted up as leaders when so often poor and low income people and women in particular are told that we don't have the capabilities of being leaders, that we're not smart enough, that we can't think for ourselves, that we can't fight for ourselves, that we can't come together in unity and fight, with each other and win. And so I just wanted to talk to you about if you could just share what inspired you to make this film, why this particular piece of history?
That's a good question. I get it a lot. I think there are a couple of reasons and a couple of things that really drove me to share this story and to uplift this history. The first is that I am Colombian. I was born in Bogota, in Colombia. And I am adoptee. I'm an adoptee. So I was born to a young woman who I think was 16 years old when she had me, and was unable to keep me. I don't, know why, and I can't really imagine what my life would have been like had I been able to stay with her, but I can imagine that it would have been hard. And I'm guessing that she had to sort of give me up or felt like she couldn't take care of me because of poverty. And so I have always felt this drive to share the stories of mothers who are fighting for their children, for their, for a safe and clean home, roof over their heads, for enough nutritious food to make them strong, and just, everything. And so for me, as soon as I heard about this story, in particular, like Ruby Duncan's story in Las Vegas, I was like, this should be a documentary film. And that's sort of how I share and uplift stories, is through documentaries. That's sort of what I know. So for me, that was sort of my form of activism, was to be able to try to do that as best I could. And so, yeah, it's been 15 years that I've been working on this project. And there was a book that I read that was published in 2005 by Annalise Orleck. She's a professor at Dartmouth, and it's also called Storming Caesar's Palace, how Black mothers fought their own war on poverty. That's sort of the smaller piece of the title. And yeah, I was just like, I have to go meet Ruby and I must get out there. And so I did. I flew out to Vegas, and, I didn't film anything right away. For me, it was really important to just, not take the camera, just hang out, get to know Ms. Ruby Duncan and her family, and to meet some of the other women whose lives, were touched by the work she did and who collaborated with her over the years. Like Alversa Beals and Mary Wesley, and other women as well who passed away and ended up not being in the film. But yeah, from the beginning, I just really wanted to get the story out. There's just so many misconceptions about low income women, and particularly women of color. And Black women, even more so, who are receiving public assistance. And so for me, part of breaking down all of these stereotypes was a huge part of making the film. It was like, this is the history of why we have these, racist sort of tropes. This is why we have systemic, racism and situations where there is like such a women who are having to go on public assistance. And yeah, anyway, so I just wanted to be able to break it down and really uplift their work and really show that, not, because all of these stereotypes suggest that women are not making good choices, they're not working hard enough, and that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Ms. Duncan was a mother of 7. She was working multiple jobs until she had to go on to public assistance. And then she worked so hard in order to feed her family and organize all the other women in the community with her. And they did so much work. They were working, more than I can even imagine. So that was a big part of this for me. It was just really, busting myths and just really showing how visionary and powerful these women were and are, and just because their stories aren't really well known. So really just to be like, look, the shoulders that, people are standing on now today are them. And so we have to recognize that. And, we're talking about a lot of different kinds of programs today that, to try to get better, some people have more money to live on, whether it's universal basic income or getting a child tax credit, or there's so many different things that could be happening. And so sort of seeing that initially conversations that were happening, the women were fighting for a basic guaranteed income, even back in the 60s and 70s. So it's exciting to kind of bring it all to life and to just get it out there and share it. So hopefully people can organize and mobilize and we can come together. So.
Definitely. We have a saying in our network that movements begin with a telling of untold stories. And so just thinking about what kind of movement can sort of take off from people knowing these untold stories of these heroes that have both come before us, but also folks in struggle that are continuing to fight today. I wanted to take us to a clip from the documentary that talks about the building of this movement.
They decided to form the National Welfare Rights Organization. George Wiley was the executive director. There were also local organizers hired by the national office to help welfare recipients organize.
So my God, people are doing this all over the country. In LA, they call themselves welfare mamas. Johnny Tillman.
We couldn't care less about making you mad because we have been mad over a period of years.
In New York City was Beulah Saunders.
Our people ain't gonna starve, and we ain't about to see them starve. We're gonna get food and clothing and shelter one way or the other.
They were bad. Oh, I wanted to be like them so bad.
Welfare recipients across the country began to talk to each other.
A woman in Nevada has no choices. There's very few jobs except going to the club or going out to become a prostitute.
The mothers met. A northern Nevada white welfare mother with a blonde beehive hairdo named Joanna Cookie Bustamante. It was the first time they met poor white welfare families.
I could not believe white women didn't have enough to make ends meet. That opened my eyes up so much.
Poor whites, poor Asian, poor Latinas, just poor people in general start organizing together.
You have to be in a mass for anybody to listen. You can go down to the welfare and have a problem, and they'll just sit there and look at you and say, I'm sorry, and that's all. Just, it's not effective.
More women band, especially welfare women, band together and clear this image up that they got so painted so dim of us. The only way to overcome oppression is through revolution, and so we revolted.
This was an era in which a lot of welfare regulations were overturned through litigation. Nothing was celebrated more heartily than the King v. Smith decision, a Supreme Court decision ending the hated man in the house rule.
We had won that victory. We see now the system do listen once you come out in numbers.
We intend to develop the organization through closer liaison with the women's rights movement, with the movement of Chicanos and Indians and Puerto Ricans and the Black Power movement.
In the mid-60s, there was a lot of energy behind the broad vision of social justice in America. People thought that almost anything was possible. People thought we could actually abolish poverty in America for good. We get the war on poverty from Johnson, who was pushed really hard by movement energy.
Unconditional war on poverty in America.
That created a range of low-income programs. It's partly how we got food stamps, so that people had some food security. It's how we got Medicare and Medicaid.
It's incredible, incredible history. I wanted to share within the National Welfare Rights Union, our political education. Carolyn Baker and Dr. Colleen Wessel McCoy helps us a lot in really digging into this history. And they shared with us that this piece from Guido West, the National Welfare Rights Organization. At its height in 1971, the National Welfare Rights Organization was composed of 800 affiliated welfare rights groups in 50 states. Membership was limited to poor people, with rules prohibiting more than 10% of the membership being people living above the poverty threshold, and voting rights were extended to only recipients of welfare or Social Security. West says that it was founded not as a civil rights movement, but as a human rights movement. And among the features that distinguished it as a human rights movement was the emphasis that poverty was not limited to a particular race or ethnic group. Although the membership was 85% Black, its leadership insisted that their base was all poor people and that the majority of poor people in the US were white. Johnny Tillman, who was lifted up in that clip and is also lifted up in the film, the first national chairwoman, said that the unity among the poor across racial lines would shake the power structure. I wanted to ask you, Maureen, if you could talk about the emphasis on developing leaders of the poor, of the welfare rights organization, and the significance of bringing together these leaders of the poor from across all lines of historic division to form the National Welfare Rights Organization. And if you could speak to as well the logo of the welfare rights, the infinity, and what it means to link up those chains of struggle of these women in struggle across the US.
When Johnny Tillman came forward to talk about the problems and the systemic nature of poverty, it represented a seismic shift. Up until then, and continuing from time to time, you had intellectuals, academicians were defining what does it mean to be poor. And I think back, I was one of the organizers of the 2010 Social Forum. And I could still remember visiting hotels in the Detroit area where the Social Forum was going to be held. And the name on the rooms that we were trying to get were a single room, a double room, and a handicap room. So I wanted to go to the handicap room so I could see what a handicap room looked like. And they all had a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 inch threshold to get into the room. And then when I went to the bathrooms, it was a step there. So I asked the question, well, this is a handicap room? Yes, it is. Well, how is somebody in a wheelchair going to get in this room? And the response would be, it's almost like they practiced it. Well, it's only 1 step. I thought, oh, okay. We can tell the person that's in the wheelchair, you're going to stand up, step over that step, pick up your wheelchair and bring it with you. So it's the same thing with Johnny Tillman, who was very poor, family, children, realizing the difficulty of it. Then you have these folks from the different colleges trying to describe what poverty was, and they did an excellent job, but they can only go so far. You don't know what a food stamp is until you get a food stamp in your pocket. And it was Annie Chambers and Annie Smart that used to talk to me, a young lady trying to learn what is the world about, talking about trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. And I remembered that. So the importance of this shift that Johnny Tillman brought in said, well, how about the handicapped take leadership positions in what the handicapped need? How about blind people, vision impaired, hearing impaired people taking a leadership role in what blind people, hearing impaired folks, listening impaired folks, how about that? Women's organizations, the right for reproductive freedom. How about women saying, let me tell you about this situation from my point of view, as opposed to having Tom, Jerry, Michael, and Sam. It's the same thing that happened here. In Michigan, we are fighting and still fighting access to water issues. And we're into another fight yet again, using the Johnny Tillman method. Folks who are in danger of having their water shut off are in the leadership of this particular fight. In this, I discovered something several years ago when we first got into this, and that's something called family toileting. You haven't lived until you understand what family toileting is. So I'm here and I got a significant other and we've got 3 kids, and your water gets turned off because you're behind on your bill, $150 or $300 in arrears, okay? 2 months behind in a payment. So mom is in the house, dad is in the house, and they go get the little one who is 4 years old and said, you have to go to the bathroom? Yes, I do. So you take that one to the bathroom, but you stand there with the door open because that little one cannot flush the toilet. So whatever they need to do, they do. All right, then you go get the 7-year-old. You have to go to the bathroom? No, I don't have to go. Yes, you do. Go to the bathroom now. And that one goes, and you still have to stand by the door because they can't flush it. Then you go get the 13-year-old. Oh, God, do I? Yes, you have to go and use the bathroom as well. Nobody flushes. 1 flush a day. And that's the first time I had ever seen anything like that in Detroit, Michigan. That is the essence of what systemic poverty is. Johnny Tillman opened that door and said, you need to know what these things are. And today we have this very prolific example. So you understand that Rockefellers, Kennedys, Bushes, they don't do family toileting. They can flush every time they go to the bathroom. That's the Johnny Tillman method. Let's be stark. Let's show what it is. How do you make $1 out of 15 cents?
Wow, incredible. Thank you. And yes, rest in power, Johnny Tillman. We definitely still follow in that, her footsteps and in that organizing tradition. Hazel, can you talk a little bit about just how the documentary has been received so far? You're in, these different spaces with different folks, like you were talking a little bit about earlier. So I'm just wondering, how has reception been, just given the moment that we're in with these increasing, levels of crisis and folks going into economic turmoil? What are your hopes for this documentary in terms of the future and movement?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to sort of piggyback on what Ms. Maureen Taylor was saying, I think one thing that really is powerful about the film is that we really do show that it's the experts who should be the leaders, and the experts on, living in low income situations are women who are running a family, and stretching their checkbook as far as it can go in order to balance everything. And so I think that's something that comes through very strongly in the film. And so I think when we have shown it in the places we've shown it at some film festivals, and we've also been showing it in community centers and things like that as well, because for me, this film needs to meet people on the ground where they are in the struggle, and not obviously film festivals are fun and they're great, but I also, really is important that Ruby Duncan's experience and the message of the National Welfare Rights Organization and all of the moms who worked tirelessly for so long be seen by other moms and families and people and allies and advocates and everybody and politicians as well, so that they can recognize who the experts are and who should be running things. I mean, we know that politicians don't know how much it costs to buy eggs, diapers, milk. I mean, sometimes they say really stupid things and you can hear them and you're just like, how can you even say that? Like, clearly just shows how detached they are from reality. And so I think, when audiences at festivals and in community kind of places are seeing the film, they're feeling that. And I think it is empowering. And I think what I'm hearing from different people in the audience is a couple of things. Oftentimes people will say, I didn't know this history. And like, there's a way in which sort of seeing, so many of the moms on camera, on film, it like, you see the leadership, then you realize, you kind of see the whole thing from a different perspective. And so women have said, I didn't know that, that there were other moms who had done this work, and now I'm excited. And there's women of all shapes and sizes and colors. I mean, as you also said earlier, there's it's always been more white families, white women on welfare than women of color, and so there's a lot of white people who have been coming up, and saying, I'm getting SNAP, and now, we're about to maybe get cut off, and X, Y, and Z. And so there's been an incredible experience to be able to hear from folks, just that the struggle continues and there's so much work that still has to be done. So I think the film allows people to kind of start sharing their experiences. And that's part of that kind of consciousness raising that we show in the film as well, that I think allows communities and everyone to come together and to kind of talk about stuff. So no one's feeling stigmatized, no one's feeling alone. We realize, like, I'm not the only one who's going through this, and we can kind of get together. So yeah, I mean, the experiences so far have been great. We're going to be having a screening in West Las Vegas for everybody in March, which is really exciting. It's like a big public screening at the West Las Vegas Library, which, Ruby brought the first library to the West Side back in 1972. There just wasn't even one. They had like a bookmobile or whatever with like 5 books on it, and people would sometimes go up and get one. But she like created all of these things to see in the film. And so it's really great to kind of come full circle and have, she'll be there, and that'll be great. And we're also taking it to the legislature. So we're going to Carson City, and we're going to show it to the assembly people who are there, and Ruby's going to come up with us to be able to, continue to speak truth to power. So it's very exciting to do those things. And earlier this week, we were at the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library, which was very, sort of powerful to be there at this time, given like his kind of, hospice situation, and that she, in 1979, had been appointed to President Carter's commissions on educational and like economic, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a commission in which she was representing kind of low income folks in America. She was one of 5 women who were doing that. So it's just kind of coming full circle in so many ways to be able to show this as a historical film, but it's also relevant because it's still happening now. So yeah, this has been fantastic, and I'm really excited to just continue. We have through Independent Lens, we're having all these pop-ups so that we're going with local PBS stations across the country. We're having screenings in all kinds of places, which is great. We have 45 screenings in 36 states in the next 6 weeks. So it's kind of a crazy tour, but it's amazing. This is like my dream, to have everything, have a film come out and people have the opportunity to see it. And yeah, as I said before, just feel kind of inspired and excited and hopefully mobilized. And if anyone feels anything wrong happening to them or in their community, either they can either start making their own organization or join one that's already doing the work on the ground. So yeah, I'm excited to have this get out there, and hopefully we can help, join the struggle. So
That's incredible. Wow. Wow. This really is an exciting moment in time, and for people to be able uh, to get to learn and also to get involved. I wanted to point out in the clip that we showed, at the beginning of the clip, it showed the welfare rights symbol, the infinity logo, and linking up the struggles. And the logo, we talk about within welfare rights union is how it spans across all history of struggle, tying and linking up these different struggles of the poor and dispossessed across time and space. This infinity symbol, which is also a link in the chain, stands for unity and organization. It expresses a necessary lesson for those people in struggle, that freedom ain't free and we only get what we're organized to take. To close us out, Miss Maureen, I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about where welfare rights organizing is headed with the organizing drive of the National Welfare Rights Union. Why union? Why now? And what's the vision for this work? Where are we going?
A four-letter word is certainly part of our future, and that would be jail, Jail. That's part of where we're going to go, okay? Demonstrations, picket lines, protests, all of those things are going to happen. The economic construct of poverty is a difficult subject to try to manage. Ms. Hazel's efforts are certainly shining a spotlight on what's going on, and indicating that even in 1971, 72, welfare mothers decided, gee, I can't feed my kids, but if I take them to the casino, they bring you food all day. What a damn good idea. Take them all in there. And here comes the finger food and the hors d'oeuvres and everything else. So where we're going, and especially as you talk about and raise the question of the welfare rights link, it didn't start off as infinity. It started off with the link, meaning let's link up the struggles. And then the half circles ended up being closed, but it started off with the concept that says in a chain, you link it up, and we're only as strong as our weakest link. So what we will be doing is certainly fighting. There's a judge that's trying to make a decision fairly soon on whether or not the protection against water shutoffs are going to be extended, and she's weighing that option. We just agreed to send $2 billion with a B billion to Ukrainian women and children who need help. I'm all for Ukrainian women and children and men and the elderly and whatnot, but as those planes are flying by, some of those billions need to stop off here and help the women and the children in this country that don't have housing, that don't have health care, that don't have enough food for the children to eat. So where are we going? We're going to go straight back to where we could buy gym shoes with a lot of rubber under the bottom, and take these children and put them in these pushable items. And we're going to take these children and we're going to get back out on these picket lines, demonstrations, and these protests to talk about how it is that in the richest country in the world, you still have veterans standing on the corner with a sign that says we'll work for food. So, a lot of things are happening. We don't go to jail unless we have a plan. And what we sing, certainly what I sing, if there's one thing we did right, was the day we stood to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. And I can sing that song for 15, 16 hours until the police screaming, get her out of here. She won't shut up. That's where we're going. We're going to fight for the rights of low income people. And by the way, the largest number of low income people in America are blind, blue eyed children. They don't even care about the babies. My name is Maureen Taylor. I serve as state chair of the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization.
Here, here. Thank you so much, Miss Maureen. Thank you, Hazel. Thank you to just the incredible leadership of the people who built and modeled welfare rights organizing, and set a way forward, a way of thinking about leadership and who should be the leaders of our movement, and what kind of leaders that we need for our movement. And thank you to the National Welfare Rights Union for continuing to do the work. Thank you for the team at Kairos. I wanted to close us out with a song that we sing in the Welfare Rights Union. It was originally comes from a church song, We Are Soldiers in God's Army. And the welfare rights leaders, you know, sort of functified it for our movement to We Are Soldiers in the Welfare Rights. And so I'll sing it for us to close us out. Thank you again. We are soldiers in the welfare rights. We have to fight, although we've got to cry. We've got to hold on the justice banner. We've got to hold it on until we die. We are soldiers in the welfare rights. We have to fight, although we've got to cry.
Say that, say
we've
that.
We've got to hold on the justice banner. We've got to hold it up until we die. Well, you know my mother.
Yes,
she
say it.
is a soldier. She has her hands on the justice plow. And when the day comes, when she is older, she says she'll stand here and fight anyhow.
Why?
We are soldiers in the welfare rights. We have to fight, although we've got to cry. We've got to hold on the justice banner. We've got to hold it up until we die.
All right,
all right.
Woo! Thank you all. Thank you, thank you.
Get on.
Thank you, Kairos. Thank you, Miss Hazel.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here and such a pleasure to be in your company, Ms. Maureen Taylor. So thank you, everybody. This was great. Had a wonderful time.
Thank you.